Hey folks, I am excited to share with you the definitive guide to understanding governor gear and charms in Kingshot. These are extremely important ways to improve your account in the long term and also require rare resources to build. And unlike hero gear, these upgrades provide stats across all of your marches simultaneously. So needless to say, getting this right is paramount for your competitiveness in-game. Accordingly, in addition to just building this video guide, Zbrave and I have added 2 new modules to the Kingshot Optimizer to provide you with individualized guidance on governor gears and charms. In this video, I'll explain the fundamentals of how all of these items work, address common misconceptions, provide strategic guidance, and show you how to use the optimizer to make the most out of your account investments. Let's dive into it. You will first encounter governor gear when you reach Town Center level 22. This unlocks the option to build up to 6 pieces of governor gear for your governor to wear. These are permanent upgrades that provide an attack and defense bonus to each troop type associated with that gear piece, with 2 of them for each of infantry, cavalry, and archer. Importantly, you cannot downgrade governor gear to redeem materials you have already spent, and all gear is commoditized. And by that, I mean there are no special abilities beyond uniform stat values associated with each of these gear pieces. So the strategy here is mostly about the order in which you should upgrade these pieces of gear to get the best return on your governor gear material investment. You will do this by spending satin, gilded threads, and eventually artisan's vision. Now this is slightly complicated by 2 factors. First, there are set bonuses that provide you with additional stat bonuses when you get 3 and 6 pieces of the same type of governor gear. Secondly, the progression of governor gear material costs is non-linear. Usually there are diminishing returns for subsequent investment. However, there are also multiple points in the gear progression where the cost for the next upgrade actually decreases for certain rare materials. And this creates points of investment arbitrage if you know where to look. And of course, all of this assumes that the stats for each troop type are created equal, and that is certainly not the case. But more on that later. On top of this, there are governor charms which adorn the governor gear, and these become available at Town Center level 25. They work similarly to everything I just said about governor gear, but with a few key differences. First, governor charms impact troop health and lethality instead of attack and defense. There are also 6 of them for each troop type, that is, 2 pieces of gear times 3 charms each. They also require different materials, charm guides, and charm designs. And finally, there are no set bonuses associated with completing charms of the same level. And for sake of clarity, it does not matter which piece of governor gear you upgrade the charm on. If it's the same troop type, and it's the same level of upgrade, the resulting stat increase will be the same. So again, the strategy here is about knowing how to maximize your return for a given investment. And just like governor gear, there are points of arbitrage along the way. And lastly, there's a time aspect to governor gear and charms. As your kingdom ages, additional tiers of gear and charms will unlock, but unless you're a major spender, you're unlikely to be limited by this condition. Furthermore, on the timing aspect, you always want to process the actual upgrade during some sort of event that rewards you points for upgrading it, such as a Hall of Governors, Kingdom of Power, and other such events. This helps give you additional return on investment for your spending. However, like the cost of upgrading the gears and charms themselves, the game does not give you a linear progression of investment on your spending where the higher level is always better. For example, blue gear will typically give you higher points than purple gear. And this isn't always immediately apparent to players due to the convoluted way the game rewards points for upgrading these items. But it basically involves multiplying a preset event points total times a preset point total per gear or charm that are loosely based on the material cost. And if you want a more in-depth explanation on how to dominate in Hall of Governors, Strongest Governor, Kingdom of Power, Alliance Brawl, etc., then check out my free-to-play mega guide linked below in the description, which combines every tip, trick, and hack to maximize your points for these events. So now that we've covered the fundamentals, let's talk about a common misconception about governor gear floating around out there. Probably the most common one that I've heard is people calling governor gear a scam. I'm not sure if this is just people trying to be sensational or if they honestly believe it. Either way, I get people constantly messaging me asking if it's true that governor gear is useless, and I couldn't disagree more. I think this just stems from surprise at the diminishing returns on governor gear investment after the early game, coupled with a lack of appreciation for the nature of the stat boosts. Look, I get it. At the beginning of the game, it's super easy to get green and then blue gear with very few of the materials required. It's also a prominent flashy thing that you could show off to other players if you choose to. Then very quickly, those upgrades start to hit a wall. Material costs increase dramatically, artisans' visions become required, and the increase of stats per upgrade starts to diminish. And if you aren't spending, it takes a long time to upgrade your gear further. And if you are spending, you can suddenly realize that your cash is not having as big of an impact on your account as it used to. But if we look at it objectively and take the emotion out of it, two things become apparent. First, it's fair to say that Governor Gear tends to hit diminishing returns in terms of aggregate stat gain faster than other ways you could gain stats, such as with battle research, pets, hero gear, and even Governor Charms. Therefore, if you're taking a total account optimization view of your spending, you are likely to find higher return on investment in other domains. But at the same time, it is also apparent that Governor Gear remains an important part of account progression. But as someone who's never purchased a Governor Gear pack in about 300 days of playing, I'm getting about a 100% bonus to attack and defense for each troop type. And if I look at a battle report for my main march, this is still responsible for about 15% plus or minus of my total stat contribution across all sources. And unlike the larger stats that come from heroes, which will be outclassed over time, or from hero gear, these stats apply globally to all of my marches simultaneously. This is becoming increasingly important in game modes like Tri-Alliance Clash, and the Radiant Spire and Mystic Trials that have been added over the last few months. And that's not even to mention the Molten Fort, which represents a permanent weekly income based on how much your Governor Gear is developed. So Governor Gear is certainly not useless by any measure. Still, I think it is fair to say that you will accrue stats through Governor Gear slower than any other domains, giving typical resource consumption patterns and acquisition rates in the game. As a benchmark, I've also never bought any charm material over my 300 days of playing, but you can see the stats on my charms are larger typically than the gear that they adorn. And the same is true for the attack and defense stats on my pets just from raising their levels alone, again without purchasing any packs. So hopefully this video helps viewers walk away with a more clear-eyed view of Governor Gear's role in the game. Now let's talk about how to strategize around building it as well as charms. There are likely three main strategic questions you'll have at some point about Governor Gear and charms. One is, how do I use my Governor materials most optimally? Two, how many more materials do I need for a desired result? And three, now with the new update, should I exchange my Governor materials? I'll go through each of these questions and walk you through how to use the optimizer tool to find your individualized answer. So let's say you're in KVK prep week and you have a lot of saved Governor Gear materials to spend. Well, you can go to the Governor Gear optimizer module and enter in your available resources at the top. And then in this resource box, you can also enter if you would like to enable exchanges between resources to simulate the in-game exchange mechanism. You can also select the box on whether or not to allow the less efficient exchanges and set limits to both exchange types, but more on that exchange concept in a bit. Next, you'll get some feedback on how balanced your resources are currently, but you can very quickly scroll down to start entering your current gear starting point. To make it easier, you can select the drop-down to initially set all gear to the same tier, and then hit apply, so it sets all gear to that type, and then you can just modify the particular set pieces that you have. And again, you'll get some immediate feedback on your stat bonuses, as well as if any set bonuses are active. Now, once we have that information, there are a few judgment calls we're going to ask you to make. And these will slightly change the nature of the optimization. First, we ask what you're optimizing for. In here, you can choose to optimize between maximizing your stat gain most efficiently, as well as maximizing for points on events like KVK Prep or Strongest Governor. And because of how Governor Gear upgrade costs and event points are very non-linear, you can get some different answers this way. So unless you really know what you're doing with your account, we would recommend you stick to maximizing stats, which will have better long-term value for you most likely. Now, just like we discussed with the Hero Gear video, not all stats are created equally, so we need to weight them based on their usefulness in combat. And these weight profiles can be slightly different depending on how old your kingdom is and your playstyle. I talk much more about these in my video on Hero Gear Guide and Optimization, linked below in the description. So if you aren't already familiar with them, then check out that video, or just learn more about them in the Build Profiles page of the Optimizer. And just like before, you can always overwrite the stat weights using your own judgment with the custom feature. Now with Governor Gear and Charms, it's a little bit different than Hero Gear because the offensive and defensive stats always come together in pairs. This means, for example, prioritizing Archer Gear comes with both Archer Attack, which is nice, as well as Archer Defense, which is not so nice. Because of these pairings, the average stat weights of each piece are a bit closer than with Hero Gear even when using the same profile. Thus, we have introduced an amplification factor to allow for a meaningful stat weight optimization recommendation without over-penalizing a particular troop type. We recommend keeping this variable at 1.25 as this was the ideal range we arrived at after a parameter sweep consisting of about 2,000 tests. But what if all this messing with variables and stats isn't for you and you want something simple? Like, I just want to upgrade my cavalry. Then you can simply enable the troop focus mode and select cavalry. This will disable all the other stat weightings above. Finally, whatever you choose, go ahead and hit the big ol' optimize button to see your result. This will give you an overview of what upgrades to make, the total stat gain you should expect, and the total power gain you'll receive. That last one is especially important if you're thinking about transferring kingdoms after KVK and want to stay below a particular limit. You can also see a customized upgrade plan in a summary format or in a step-by-step breakdown. In either way, you'll see the material usage as well as any exchanges required to get that result. And even if you're not prioritizing by event points, you'll still get to see how many of them you can expect to score. And the Governor Charm module is designed in the same way. Basically, the data entry works identical to the Governor Gear module. You put in your materials and current charm levels, as well as set your optimization logic, and then you hit optimize to get your individualized upgrade plan. Okay, but what if you're not about to spend your materials, and rather you're trying to plan out what to do for a KVK a few weeks from now? Or what if you have a desired Governor Gear or charm level you want to reach and are trying to figure out how many more materials you need? If this sounds like you, then simply scroll up to the top and hit the Plan tab. All of your entered data will carry over and will essentially reverse the calculation logic to find out how many more materials we need to reach a desired end state. In this mode, you'll see a new card called Planning Goal. This allows you to set either a target level for a specific gear piece, or, if you're a mad lad, a preset amount of KVK points. And if you have exchanges enabled, then you can also let the optimizer know how many weeks ahead you have to prepare, so that it knows how many potential exchanges you can make in that time. Then, with this information, the optimizer will show you the most efficient way to get to your stated goal. It will also show you if you have enough materials, need to use exchanges, or need to get more materials beyond what's possible with the material exchanges. Between the first view and this planning mode view, you should have all the levers and knobs you need to adequately prepare in advance for your next big set of KVK upgrades. And finally, let's talk a bit more about those resource exchanges. For this, you need to go into the Exchange tab. Please note that this one is a bit more experimental in nature and could change a bit with your feedback. And while we have some elements of Governor Material Exchange baked into the other modes, this one looks at it on a standalone basis to help you plan your exchange strategy. Resource exchanges are possible in Kingshot to help you overcome bottlenecks in Governor Gear and Charm materials. Given typical acquisition and consumption patterns, a majority of players' population will be short on Artisan Visions for Governor Gear and Charm Designs for Governor Charms. Very late game or whale players would be the exception. There are very limited opportunities to exchange materials at cost parity each week, and then an additional but still somewhat limited opportunities to exchange materials at a value loss. You can do these no regrets trades each week to shift resources from your more abundant types to your more bottleneck type, and since there's no value loss, you can freely trade bidirectionally, except for trading out of Artisan's Visions, which you likely won't want to do anyway. So these trades are essentially risk-free. However, if you expand into these value leakage trades, this creates a decision point for the player. Do you lose theoretical long-term account value to make it more accessible now for near-term upgrades that could accelerate your pace of play and thus earn you more resources and rewards? And here there's an irreducible element of judgment in this that's also based on your playstyle, alliance role, etc. So here we show you 3 lenses to help answer this question effectively. First, what is your current resource balance when compared to the ideal ratio of materials you will need to complete all gear and charm upgrades? Second, how does your material balance look like when it's compared to a nearer term goal, such as all gold tier 0 gear? This distinction could lead to a different result due to material consumption ratios changing dramatically throughout the progression curve. And finally, in the immediate nearest term, how close are you to your next best return on investment upgrade that could be enabled by either exchange type? Less distance traveled to get this next upgrade could mean more account impact for less value leakage in an exchange. And given the inputs that you put in, this tab provides you a feedback loop on all three of these major questions. And by looking at these lenses simultaneously, you'll be able to make a more informed decision of what is right for you. So with that information, if you wanted to simulate a few exchanges, you could do that here and actually put together a shopping list of sorts, see the impact on your current account total, and then choose to apply it back to either the Optimize or the Plan tab. This will update the values on your available resources count. Then all you need to do is scroll down, hit Optimize, and see how the result has changed. So be sure to check out all three of these tabs to get individualized advice on your account. ZBrave and I had a lot of help from many players to make this possible, from testing to theory crafting to data validation, and you can see the names of those who contributed in our acknowledgements page. We also want to thank those of you who found your way to our Support Us page and bought us a coffee to help offset our hosting and computing costs. So special thanks to Dustin Tran, Heavenly Demon, Fizzle234, Bacon Pie, Jeffrey, Bot1289, Twice, Negma, Joe, Anastasia Suratova, Lane, Garden Fresh, Mirkova, Paddington, Dassam, Max Troops, and Eric. Your generosity helps make this work possible. And also special thanks to the Play Smarter community who have now made a way for serious spenders to invest smarter and support the Optimizer project by leveraging your in-game spend when you check out with creator code Optimizer. If you want a trustworthy, concierge-like approach to spending that follows you from game to game, check out the link below in the description for details. And of course, special thanks to my Sloth Squad members for broader support on my channel that helps enable me to continue making more great guides like this one. We hope you find the new Optimizer modules useful, and feel free to share feedback below in the comments. As you saw with the Hero Gear release, we go through every response, and it definitely helped us sharpen the Hero Gear tool post-release. Also be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay up to date with the latest Kingshot guides and Optimizer developments. Thanks again for watching, and happy gaming out there.